Listeners everywhere, welcome to the Movie Show with Joel and Ryan, the weekly fix for your screen addiction and a trusted source for discussion of all things film and television. Please keep in mind that for the purposes of this podcast, Joel and Ryan are not acting as journalists, but rather fellow moving picture enthusiasts. All of their opinions should be taken as such. Also, please be warned that while Joel and Ryan may seem like petulant children, they are, in fact, adults who may occasionally use adult language. While they promise to bleep out all the worst words, it's a good bet you will still understand what they were saying. And now, with no further ado, here's Joel and Ryan.
Welcome to your ears and the rest of your body and your mind, your heart, your soul, all of that stuff. Welcome to the Movie Show with Joel and Ryan. I am Joel.
And I'm Ryan.
We thank you for letting us into your brains again for another week. Today we are going to, we have a couple of fun things to discuss. And I think, obviously, I am optimistic. You are going to enjoy it. Ryan, as always, is reserving judgment.
I'm a bit skeptical of the quality of the show. We'll see.
Yep. And that's mostly he's skeptical of his co-host. It really just kind of all falls upon...
An optimist can never be pleasantly surprised.
But a pessimist is... Oh, wait.
Sorry.
I don't know. I don't know how the phrase goes.
That's right.
So, Ryan, how
is there a corresponding phrase?
I don't... There should be.
I don't think there is.
A pessimist is...
what?
I don't know. He's Eeyore. I don't know.
I don't know either.
Anyway, so how was your week? Did you do anything? What was on the docket for this week?
What was I watching this week? How quickly I've forgotten. Just sort of some of the highlights of 1998, I guess.
Okay. Was that, now, as I always like to find out, how did that sort of come about? Did that just start with one movie and sort of lead to another movie?
Well, I started the week watching the Hannibal Lecter movies because I haven't watched them in a long time. I didn't plan this week very carefully, so I watched like Silence of the Lambs on Monday, and then because I lacked ideas, I basically just kept watching them till I got some.
Sure.
And then I just ended the week with the highlights of 1998, and I don't know why. But I watched a couple of movies I really like from that year, especially Primary Colors, which I hadn't watched in ages, which is a really good movie.
Mm-hmm.
That despite it being, all films about politics, especially political campaigns, tend to look really naive and silly just a few years later. That's been 20 years now.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still just a really great film full of really great actors. Elaine May wrote the script and Mike Nichols directs, and for my money, it's my favorite film of theirs. But in any case, it was their best movie in ages at that point.
Yeah.
It's his best movie since probably Working Girl, and it's her best movie since, I don't know, the 70s. So I got to watch that, which is great. I got to watch a film that I enjoy that it's kind of not great, Lost in Space, came out around the same time.
The John Hurt. Not John, sorry.
No,
William Hurt.
Yeah, William Hurt.
William Hurt, John Hurt. And Matt LeBlanc cashing in on getting some of that Friends. That
was a last-minute replacement. The guy he replaced, very well-known, the guy from Boondock Saints, and he played young Indiana Jones on the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. I can't remember his name. But he was going through some troubles there. I won't really go into his biography, but so he had showed up and was shooting even. So Matt really came in and saved the day. And Matt, he's a mixed bag. He got a lot of laughs just for being, not in a good way, just for being present in that at the beginning of the movie when I saw it in the theater, which I thought was a shame. He says a lot of cheesy stuff at the beginning of the movie that but he didn't write that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
When the movie stops to breathe a little bit and he gets to kind of be himself within that character, I think he's actually quite great in it. I mean, he's funny. He's got that sort of sly wit. He's not playing the lovable doofus, that he plays on Friends. He's playing this sort of cocky, flight suit hero guy, which can be annoying. But a lot of that stuff, a lot of the stuff that it was really ripped on for at the time, I really enjoy. I think the ending of it, they redid the whole ending and kind of dumbed it down. They had this very complicated time travel ending in the script where you didn't really know what time you were experiencing, and there were all these time waves flowing through it. And they abandoned that, which is maybe smart. I don't know. It's hard to say.
Sure.
For a more emotionally cathartic kind of ending, I think the ending of that movie doesn't live up to the rest of it. But I like it. I like the early bits. I like when the ship takes off. They shot for shot, they emulated the rocket taking off in Apollo 13.
Yeah.
I think it's a little too much of a ripoff rather than an homage, but it plays like that. It has like a vitality to it because it plays like an actual rocket launch in the film. I like that. That's a neat touch, and I like the creepy derelict spaceship that they come across, and I like the reasons for everything that happens late in the story. So there's a lot to like about it. It's a lot of cheesy dialogue and stuff. But for the most part, and there's a terrible CGI character, Blarp.
Oh my God.
I'd forgotten about Blarp.
I am really, as you're describing this, I'm sitting here going, man, did I even see this movie? I'm trying to...
It's a big budget sci-fi movie. It was the first movie... It was the first movie to be released that knocked Titanic out of the #1 spot.
Oh, wow.
It has that little bit of trivia associated with it. And I don't want to say that it's good. It's really cheesy. It's a cheesy family space adventure. But that's what Lost in Space was. So in that way, I believe it's really sort of true to the spirit of that. It's got a lot of goofy humor in it. The serious stuff is all, But William Hurt and to a lesser degree, but certainly it's also true. Mimi, first Mrs. Tom Cruise, I can't remember her last name.
Rogers?
Mimi Rogers, thank you. They do a great job of like living in that in a way that makes it not stupid. Matt doesn't do as good a job, but he's got to say some really stupid jingoistic stuff before he finally gets to breathe and flirt with the girl and just kind of be a guy.
Yeah.
Once he's doing that, I think he's fantastic. They were lucky to get him, in fact. Heather Graham's a little dull.
Heather Graham and Gary Oldman was in that, wasn't he?
And Gary Oldman as the doctor, and he's
I remember that, but I
he's
don't remember
really
anything.
clearly enjoying himself. And it's another shame about the Lost in Space, and then we'll move on. But it has cameos from all the major characters of the TV show, except sadly the two most famous people, the Doctor, where there's Edward Fox plays him in the film. The role the Doctor would have been, which would have been great for him. He claims he didn't want to do a cameo in it, but it feels more like they cut him at the last second because it would have been, quote, distracting. But I'm not sure what kind of movie they thought they had there. The real tragedy is that Bill Mumy would have played his movie counterpart character grown up in a future timeline.
Oh, sure.
And Bill Mumy's a great actor. The guy who plays him is Jared Harris, who it's weird watching him because he's a great actor too, but in a totally different way and isn't very well cast in it. So it's really a bummer that they didn't follow through with that. I'm not a fan of cameos or whatever, but the way the script is written, it's written for these parts to be played by these people clearly. They all interact with their counterparts in very key ways or comment on them. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it plays great at the beginning of the movie, so why they thought Mummy showing up at the end of the movie would be distracting from what? It's a shame. He's really, really good. The Doctor in those early scenes where he sabotages the movie Doctor's plans would have been really fun. So the fact they cut them out, it bums me out. But that's a fun. It's a fun space adventure that it does sort of let you down at the end. It is not a great movie by any stretch of the imagination, but it's kind of cool.
Well, cool. Well, join us next week on the Lost in Space podcast.
Yeah.
And
Well, you asked what I
no,
watched.
I
I could have talked about Man in the Iron Mask. I watched that, too.
wow.
I decided to give Lost in Space my
hey.
a little bit of love because it's not going to show up on many top 5
I
lists.
know. But as we're sitting here, it might not even show up on top 5 Lost in Space remakes.
Right. At this point, it would be down towards the bottom. It's still a fun movie.
No, but that's like I'm sitting here going, man, I'm not remembering any of this.
If you don't,
and
remember,
I know that I saw it.
If you don't remember Blarp,
I do remember. I have a vague recollection of Blarp.
Blarp.
Oh, Blarp. I will just quick say.
We hardly knew you.
Yeah, I will quick say that I took advantage of having a few hours free, child-free this weekend. When my son was off visiting Grandpa and Grandma, and I took in Captain Marvel in the theater.
Oh yeah, I saw Captain Marvel too.
Yeah.
Yeah, my apartment, you can't tell probably sitting here, but it flooded when we had those 3 straight days of rain.
Oh, did it? No.
And so I had to, I guess that was last weekend, I had to do all these plans to get myself out of here.
Oh, man.
And one of the things we did was me and one of my best movie buddies went to see Captain Marvel because it's just from reading up on what else is playing, there wasn't, there were at a couple other options, but we saw that too. Did you like it?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm as we've talked about. I mean, I'm a sucker for all those, Marvel superhero movies in general. I tend to give a lot of leeway to, yeah. So I
think I'm a sucker
it.
for them too because I don't really like them, and yet I keep seeing all of them.
Yeah, I
sucker in a different way.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was fun. It was a great popcorn movie.
It was pretty entertaining.
Yeah, it
turned out to be the right way to pass the time, I have to say.
Yeah. So, I don't want to talk too much about it because at some point we'll do a superhero movie, episode, and maybe it'll come up on that one.
I doubt it.
Well, I mean, maybe not necessarily in the top 5, but
or certainly the top 20.
We might talk about. We might do an episode just on the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And
we could. Boy, we sure could.
And then we...
There's plenty of them. It seems premature to do that. Maybe, although, maybe after...
After Endgame.
After Endgame, you really can maybe do that.
Yeah.
We'll see.
But it was great just to go into it.
If you guys out there think that's a great idea, that we should do a Marvel episode right in... or it might not happen. I might be able to kick and scream enough that Joel might not be able to drag me over the finish line for that.
And that's
without your help, listeners.
Yep. That would be. It would. I think it would spark an interesting conversation. Unfortunately, it means that you'd probably hear my voice a lot more than in a normal episode, and I don't think anyone wants that.
No, I think they do want that.
Oh, really?
People have been asking for that. There's not enough Joel.
No, I highly doubt that.
In the movie show with Joel and Ryan.
I really, really doubt that. But anyway, anyway, it was great to just go back into go to a darkened movie theater. And
it was neat. It was neat to jump back into the Marvel universe in a place where you could just have a kind of solo, simple adventure.
Yeah, no, I would absolutely agree with that. Yeah,
I'm not a big fan of the Ant-Man movies. They are similar in that way, though. They're enjoyable as a thing unto themselves.
Yeah.
This was that too, and I welcomed that.
Yeah. There was. So yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
I don't have anything else other than that.
That's plenty.
Yeah.
That's the must-see movie of March, and we both seen it.
Yeah. So we fulfilled our contractual obligations to the universe.
That's right.
So, real quick, before we get going on to our first subject of the day, I want to quick remind people that you should reach out to us. You should find our show and subscribe to our show on iTunes, and please leave a review. Give us all the stars, if you wouldn't mind. We hope that we have deserved all the stars, but even if we haven't deserved all the stars, give us all the stars anyway, and then you could say you did a good deed for poor, unfortunate people. And you can reach out to us on Twitter and Instagram at Ask Joel and Ryan. On Facebook at The Movie Show with Joel and Ryan page. The YouTube page, which you should check out for content related to what we discuss here. And, of course, you can listen to us not only on Spotify, on iTunes, but on Spotify and Podbean and all your favorite podcast listening platforms. And, of course, oh my God, Ask Joel and Ryan at gmail.com.
Yeah.
And as we always say on The Movie Show with Joel and Ryan, fly the friendly skies. So as I rudely cut you off to do stupid bit that I like to do.
We had to get that in.
Segueing directly on the same subject of asking Joel and Ryan, we have our favorite listener.
Yes,
and all around good guy,
unofficial ombudsman of the movie show with Joel and Ryan.
And please understand that when we talk about our favorite, our listener Rob, that we are so grateful to him, and he's a great guy, and we like him personally as well as a fan of the show.
Yep, and he helps us greatly, sort of steer us in certain ways, and we appreciate that. That could be you guys if you wanted. You just got to speak up.
Mm-hmm. And we have, and hopefully we'll get to our asking questions segment because have a couple.
We'll have a couple from
from hopefully some.
One awesome.
I know we have from a new person.
But Rob wrote us an epic tale.
Yeah, an epic tome, and having to do with our episode last week where we took a step in the Wayback Machine and talked about home video and watching movies in the privacy of your home phone. So,
and since he took the effort to do that and put a lot of thought in,
there was a lot
into
of
it. We thought we would feature it here at the top of the show in its entirety.
Mm-hmm. So we're gonna take a look at letter from our favorite listener, Rob. Okay, granted, nobody in the world will care about this but me. I know that, but you drove me a little nuts when you talked about the DVD innovation of putting an audio commentary on the alternate soundtrack. Cue rewind sound effect. All right, this along with the widescreen format gaining popularity and acceptance was actually an innovation of the Laserdisc. The first audio commentary was on the Criterion Collection Laserdisc of the original King Kong in December 1984, over a decade before the first DVD was released in 1997. Most Criterion Laserdiscs and many other, though not the majority of non-Criterion Laserdiscs, came with audio commentaries. They also included special features such as trailers and featurettes. All of that really began with the Laserdisc. DVD brought it all to the masses, whom, as you pointed out, are more or less indifferent to them.
Yeah, and because DVD brought it to the masses, that's why we included it in that section, actually. We gave it a little bit of thought. But you are right. It was Laserdisc that brought that. As a matter of fact, listening back on the show, the two of the commentaries we talked about, Jonathan Demme's Silence of the Lambs commentary and the actor commentary from Sphere with Dustin Hoffman and Samuel L. Jackson, those are both from Laserdiscs originally. So you got us there. That earns you the right to hear the tape rewind sound effect. But we kind of knew that, we put it in the DVD era because it really is part of that. I know almost no people who owned any Laserdiscs. I had a big movie collection and I owned two. And it was only so that I could get the longer version of Aliens and the longer version of The Abyss, which I never watched on my Laserdiscs that I owned. I had to have somebody tape them for me to watch them.
I remember that.
Yeah, because the investment was just, at the time, was way too much. But I couldn't deny myself longer versions of two of my favorite ever films.
Yeah. Did you know Darren Zimbrick in college?
Yeah.
Remember Darren? Yeah, Darren had an extensive Laserdisc collection.
Yeah. Well, and I think Rob knew Darren, too.
Well, yeah, Rob would know Darren. Yeah, of course Rob would know Darren.
Yeah. So, Laserdiscs...
I mentioned that he was the only guy I knew that had
them. Yeah, I worked with a guy at a video store. If I hadn't worked at a video store, I wouldn't have known anybody, and he had a machine, and he was very patiently put them on tape for me. So I had them on tape at least through college or whatnot. Widescreen versions of this with extra content. That was very, very exciting to me. But yeah, really Laserdisc did all that stuff. It just did it in a super expensive and practically unmanageable way.
Yeah.
Which we kind of talked about. There's people out there that still sort of have Laserdiscs and still talk about how they still play the laser, but I can't imagine doing that. I think that's a completely dead format. But when it became a living format in DVD, which is still somewhat alive, all of that great stuff was taken along with it. And as you say, kind of introduced to the masses then, which is why we put that where we put it. I hope that's when I'm making excuses for, we didn't really state anything that was exactly factually wrong, but and I think we gave Laserdisc more credit than anyone else doing this kind of thing would give, right?
Yep.
Because to me, that extra stuff, while it's great, the big thing that Laserdisc did was it made the cropping of films to be in their proper aspect ratio. Nobody was doing that. TV, nothing. It wasn't happening anywhere until Laserdisc came along, and Laserdisc didn't do it every time, but it did it almost every time. And its insistence on doing that, and the fact that carried on to the next thing is its most important thing to me. So I'll just repeat that and stand by that.
Real quick sidebar. As we've talked about this, and as I've thought about, when we talked about it kind of it's frustrating. It blows me away a little bit that that filmmakers that when TV came out, TV was square and small. When the idea of putting a cinematic movie on television, that it took so long for the idea of maintaining the aspect ratio, whether it be with the black bars on the top and bottom of the screen or redesigning televisions. I don't know. It surprises me that Hollywood would have been like, "Yep, nope, we're gonna crop and chop this film up." And
now when you watch the Mary Tyler Moore Show, the sides are cropped off to maintain the proper aspect ratio.
Sure.
So it's just in reverse on your new TV. Things were made differently. Even movies are made differently. Some are the shape of your TV. Some are considerably wider. I get that it's a frustration that the image gets smaller the bigger the image was originally on the movie screen. But again, I don't think there's any excuse for compromising something visually. Steven Spielberg, starting with E.T., started shooting all his movies in 1.85 so that when they were cropped for video, they wouldn't look as terrible as 1941 and Close Encounters did on video. He literally started making movie-making decisions based on that. James Cameron, starting with Terminator 2, which was shot in Super 35, started framing his films for widescreen in the theater and television. He made sure that the frame was right for both.
Wow.
He had 2 different crop lines on his, 3 really, on his monitors so that every scene he set up would look good both ways.
Yeah.
But most filmmakers didn't give that any thought. And that didn't start happening until the late 80s and early 90s, going back in time. It's just watching, Lawrence of Arabia on television is terrible. It looks awful. It just looks really, really awful. But watching Wizard of Oz on television looks perfect because it's the shape of your old TV. It all just depends.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, okay. Anyway, so let's get back to Rob's letter here.
Yeah.
So we've just talked about DVDs bringing in all the masses, which is more or less indifferent to them. Still galleries were particularly effective on Laserdisc as they had the ability to freeze on a single frame, and you could step through the images one at a time. Laserdiscs utilized 2 different speeds, much like the variable recording speeds for VHS. There was CAV, which allowed for only 30 minutes of video per side, and CLV, which allowed for 60 minutes of video per side. CAV was required for the ability to perfectly pause on any frame and was the mode used for still galleries. CAV produced a better picture, but at a level that was hard to discern with the naked eye. The benefits of CAV were primarily in the ability to utilize special features and scan through and perfectly freeze any frame of the film, depending on the running time. Some Laserdiscs used both formats. If a film was over 120 minutes, meaning it could not fit on a single double-sided disc, the CAV format might be used for one side, usually, say, the climax of a film where one might like to see a special effects sequence frame by frame. In general, the video quality was superior to VHS at the same level as the quality increased from Laserdisc to DVD and then DVD to Blu-ray. It was significantly more vibrant and sharp.
Yeah, Joel and I actually have done some research on that, and it turns out that, again, you're absolutely correct. You're the only one who cares about that, any of that. I can guarantee you, and granted it's a relatively small sample size at this point, you're the only listener who cares about any of that and would ever go into that much detail in a letter about Laserdisc that nobody watches or owns anymore. So you're right again, Rob, is all I'll say on that topic.
All right. End rant. Oh, wait. I got that dismissive 3D
This is
remark.
Rob again.
This is Rob. Yeah, this is Rob.
I just wanted to make sure the audience was following all that.
Sorry, audience. I'm in character as Rob.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. He continues.
Yes.
Oh, wait. I caught that dismissive 3D remark. I can take or leave 3D in the theater. It's generally a lackluster experience, but 3D at home is far superior, and I bemoan its abandonment in the home market just as they perfected it. Greedy manufacturers did what they always do, rushed the technology before it was ready, thus creating an impression that it was a poor experience. By the time they perfected it, it was a niche market which they abandoned in order to push 4K hardware. They didn't even leave it as a feature on upper-end models. Thus, when my TV dies, so does my access to the 200-plus 3D films in my collection. I can only hope that Cameron's Avatar sequels reignite the 3D medium and they make the feature available again. What captivates about 3D is not the things that pop out of the screen. Those are gimmicks. What I love is the creation of depth and the immersion into the screen. I always loved 3D as a kid, whether it was the blue and red posters that came in kids' magazines or my all-time favorite Viewmasters. But when 3D TVs came out, I was not really interested and could not afford one. And my interest stayed at a very low level until I saw Scorsese's Hugo in 3D at the theater. After that, I knew I had to get a 3D TV somehow because I loved that film and I never wanted to have to see that movie in 2D.
3D is interesting. We didn't really talk about it. My dismissing it, I was really dismissing it as an innovation. I don't find 3D in recent years here to be an innovation at all. It's something we've had for a long, long time, and it's something that's come back, as a feature from time to time, a feature and a fad, which is really all. I think the jury's out on recent 3D, even that it really was just a fad. It was, the movie studios saw it as value added. Feature that they could charge more for, and that worked until audiences wised up, which was almost immediately. Avatar, the way it utilized 3D was truly innovative. The real innovative thing about Avatar, though, isn't 3D. It's the motion capture cameras that they used for their CGI characters. That changed movie making dramatically. But the 3D in Avatar, it's hard to argue that it's not impressive. It's pretty amazing. The whole movie was shot with special equipment. It was designed with that in mind. It still has some problems. It has, focus problems and other issues that 3D doesn't cooperate with, sort of traditional filming techniques. But the artificial stuff in Avatar, which is a ton of it, looks great in 3D. But it wasn't just a few months later when Alice in Wonderland came out and it it was not shot with special cameras. It was not meant to be a 3D movie when they were shooting it. They did a pretty decent post-conversion process on it, and the material allowed itself to be turned to 3D very effectively, which was great. That movie looked pretty good, and again, even though its audience wasn't huge, it raked in tons of extra money because of these extra 3D showings.
Mm-hmm.
The very next movie, which is just a month or so later, was the remake of Clash of the Titans. That movie wasn't meant to be used in 3D either. It's not a bright, colorful family movie like Alice in Wonderland. It's a dark, murky, earth-tony, bronzy kind of thing.
Yeah.
Widescreen entertainment. It's actually visually okay, semi-accomplished movie, so it's not a terrible remake per se, but the 3D in it is awful. It was dark, it was terrible, and people everywhere in the world decided they hated 3D based on that experience. And they were right to, because that was awful. And it also was clear that with only a couple exceptions, and some of which weren't even good, that film that Cameron produced that takes place in the cave, that survival movie, I don't remember what it's called now, Piranha 3D, and Prometheus, all of which you could argue in their own way aren't very good films, actually did utilize 3D correctly. Everything else was just mucky, dark, crappy, post-conversion junk that audiences got to spend more money for. Mm-hmm. I hate 3D. I hate it. But that what you've just heard is my sort of trying to give it its fair shake. You know, it was the studios didn't treat it right. You're exactly right. That's why it died. And they didn't treat it right at home either, which is why it isn't adopted by anybody. But I can't stand 3D. I never have liked it. And the reason I don't like it is because it's not an innovation. I remember, you know, I got the movie show with Joel and Ryan now, and I got Joel here to listen to me patiently and validate my opinion, which is great. So I don't have to go on internet discussion boards anymore, which is good because they're not a nice place to be anymore. But when 3D was at its heyday, I went on them all the time to discuss movies with this person or that person. And I remember talking to these people who love 3D, and they had this same argument. Oh, well, you're like one of those people who wouldn't like sound, and you're like one of those people who wouldn't like color. You know, we see the world in 3D. We're going to see our movies that way. And what I always like to point out to them, you know, I didn't really affect their opinion much, but, you know, sound is something you hear with your ears, and color is something you see with your eyes. 3D is something that is actually 2D that you wear special goggles for to trick your brain somewhat into believing you're seeing something that's not there and that you're not seeing. Mm-hmm. It's a trick. It's a gimmick. There's no 3D movies. They're all 2D. It doesn't work on my brain the way it does on people who seem to enjoy it. I can see it. A lot of people can't even really experience it. They experience a sort of cloudy mess when they watch 3D just because of the way their eyes work. My eyes work okay with 3D, although I got to wear 2 pairs of glasses at the theater, which I don't like. Mm-hmm. That's a pain, and it actually affects the 3D experience.
You're talking about your glasses and
plus
3D
other
glasses.
Exactly.
I just want to make sure that people, I don't want people to think you're going in wearing 2 sets of 3D glasses.
People who wear glasses and watch 3D with other glasses, it affects the way you see it.
Yeah.
And not dramatically, but it does a little bit. Also, my brain just doesn't accept it. It doesn't accept it as 3 dimensions because it isn't. It looks cool, but it doesn't look real, and it certainly doesn't look more real, not to me.
Yeah.
So I don't lament its passing, but my heart goes out to the people who love it, who have built up these collections, who bought this gear, because what Rob says is absolutely correct. They have completely abandoned those people.
Yeah.
There are you cannot go to a store today and buy a 3D TV. Period.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist. And as he said, it would be very easy in a high-end panel or a high-end, disc player to just include it as a legacy thing so that these people's stuff that they spent all this money on could still be useful.
Yeah, my brother made the investment in a 3D TV several years ago.
And
we just had this discussion where it was like, he's like, I would like to get a new TV, but... when I do that,
Yeah,
you know.
all this, I can't use any of this anymore. You know, I argued with people about 3D at the time. I'm just like, you guys, it's just not going to hang around. I can't sit here in my apartment and do my ironing and watch Dr. Phil with 3D goggles on. 3D is not going to take over everything because it's just not. We don't experience media in this calm, stare directly at the screen sort of way. It was absurd even then to think that we would. But that's not to say that I don't think that you shouldn't be able to watch the 3D movies you like. There's a lot of them, not just from this era, but from the classic era of 3D, the Wax Museum era, if you will, and then even in the early 80s, there was sort of a revival in it where some big pictures came out.
Yeah, I mean, I think going back to last week, we were talking about what's the future of like what sort of things, and we were talking about how. The idea of a dedicated cinema room,
right?
That's going away for a more multimedia sort of room that serves more purpose. I could see that, but there are always going to be those people that really. That want a movie room, that are going to want tiered seat. I'm going to have these recliners on a tiered seating and blah, blah, blah. And we have this cool screen and these speakers and stuff. And so, it does. It is. You would think that someone would just have a 3D as a feature that would be available. Even if it is just for high end,
they've abandoned it. The studios have abandoned it. They've all abandoned it. It was a gimmick.
Which it'll be interesting.
It's unfortunate, but it was a gimmick, and you could have predicted that because it wasn't new.
Yeah.
And I'll stand by this, and it's why you're not getting a rewind sound effect, Rob. It wasn't an innovation at the time. Avatar presented it to us in a new and innovative and better way, and I think watching Prometheus in 3D. Also very, very impressive visually, like really, really good use of the tech. But
seeing They Will Not Grow Old in the theater, the World War I film that Peter Jackson did. Again, I thought it's the first time that I really was like, seeing this in 3D makes a difference.
Yeah.
There's again, and Rob mentions the creation of depth and stuff, and I thought that they did a really good job in that film of taking this World War I footage, and helping to sort of create depth. It helped with the goal of the movie, which clearly is experiencing this war, making this war seem more accessible to our modern brain.
Right.
Putting things in the correct speed so that it didn't look like fast walking, and it made it feel like you're watching a war movie that was produced, in present day.
Right.
And so it'll be interesting to watch that movie.
In 2D
at home and see if it still has that same. Maybe
it
will.
The same magic.
Yeah,
to
the
it.
same magic to it. Maybe it will. But I really, that's, as we sit here talking about 3D. In the back of my mind, I've been running what 3D experiences have I had that have been like, man, I'm so glad I saw that in 3D. And really, They Will Not Grow Old might be the only one that I really feel like, man, I'm glad I saw that in 3D.
Rob mentions Hugo, which was Martin Scorsese's film, which that. I'm a mixed mind with that film. The 3D is great in that movie. Actually, it's really, really well executed. What I don't like about it is that that train station in Paris, the just the whole nature of it, the artifice of it and it's hard to say because Hugo's maybe its own show, but Hugo is about a very innovative filmmaker who did all kinds of amazing behind the scenes sort of techniques in movies, like in camera effects that still sort of amaze the senses. But Hugo, makes that whole central train station in Paris feel like a theme park. It doesn't feel the least bit real. It's a very colorful, silly movie where the poverty that needs to be escaped using these, using this fantasy or this sense of storytelling, which is a kind of story ideal that I admire. It doesn't ring true because the whole thing is a fantasy. It's a fantasy from start to finish.
Sure.
Everything about it. Joel's looking at the clock. I can promise you, Joel, we're just not going to do our list this week.
No, and I'm fine with that.
He's right to look at the clock. We're not going to do a list this week.
This is going to be
this is the show, Rob. It's your letter, so I hope you appreciate the time we're spending on it.
Yeah,
I hope even though I'm dismissive of 3D personally because I don't like it, I hope we're still giving it a fair shake. It does, I don't know. I just don't like it.
Like I said at the top, I love this. I love that Rob wrote us such a detailed letter. And I'm thrilled that we get to just sit and talk about it, and
it's going to be cool because of that. So I've just made my peace with it, and our list will keep till next week. Yeah, well, now we won't have to think of anything for next week.
That's a lot.
That'll make my week a lot easier.
So Rob does have one final segment here, and it brings up something that we touched on last week. But let's talk a little bit more about it.
And Rob. Just to finish up on 3D before we move on, because it really is a big topic.
Yeah.
The avatars are not going to bring back 3D. They're absolutely not going to. They're going to have 3D in them. It'll probably be great. Hopefully, it'll just get you a TV or two that you can get where you Joel's brother, same thing. You guys can upgrade. Hopefully, it'll bring it back just enough. But until Hollywood's really willing to do what Prometheus did and what Hugo does and what Avatar does, and it's clear that they're not, there's no reason to pay more per ticket for 3D, and there's no reason for Hollywood to pay more per movie for 3D if they can't make more on it. And the jury's out on it. And it's not necessarily 3D's fault. It's the ugly economics of it and the fact that the thing itself just isn't for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, unless there's some...
the Avatar movie should be big.
Yeah, it's not even
But even those, they should have came out long ago. If they really wanted to be big, they've taken way too long.
Yeah, it's gonna. Yeah, the fact that this has taken so
long. And there's
long,
four of them in the can. 4 sequels, all shot and written consecutively, and it's like, man, if that first one comes out and even disappoints a little, you're wrong to bet against Cameron. Everything he's ever done has run way over budget and always comes out and sets the world on fire. So, but. This feels different. This feels wrong-headed, and it's sort of a way that makes me worry for him and that sort of cinema,
Yeah,
we'll see. It's interesting, but the future of 3D very much rides with those because they're the only thing left on the horizon that seems to treasure even the idea of it at all.
Yeah, unless some very powerful people. Start making very public, public demand or not demands even, but just talking about how, boy, people should be able to watch this in 3D in their homes. People should be, unless it has some like real oomph backing it. I don't even see that. I don't see that even Avatar is going to be able to get manufacturers to
and it all comes back to what I said in the show, which again I stand by, which is that 3D isn't an innovation. It's a fad that's come and gone many times, and you could predict that was what was going to happen this time, sadly.
Would that TV manufacturers would introduce smell-o-vision into the home? Okay, so the final thing has to do with the actual physical Blu-ray.
Yeah, and there's some interesting points here, so go ahead and lead Rob again.
He has a question related to our discussion on the home video market. We discussed the downside of streaming rather than purchasing physical media. Primarily the fact that if you own it on your shelf, you will have access to it any time. But it seemed to focus on subscription services, which titles come and go in terms of what is available monthly. What are your thoughts on building a digital library? Rather than streaming from a subscription service like Netflix or Amazon Prime, or even renting the movies on demand, but purchasing a digital copy via, say, Vudu or iTunes, or redeeming the digital copy that comes with many Blu-rays and DVDs. I have found that I purchase 3D Blu-rays or movies that I cannot purchase via digital, but many films I purchase just a digital copy of. For example, A Star is Born. It's not in 3D. The digital copy that I purchase has the special features, and I could buy it in UHD quality. I have saved space on my shelves, which are overpacked. I have access to the special features and the 4K quality. Do you feel this is a viable alternative or not? It isn't for every movie. Sometimes the digital version doesn't have the special features, and I always buy the physical media for 3D. But also there are films available in HD digitally that are not available on Blu-ray. I have over 2,000 films and over 100 TV shows in my digital library. There is overlap with the physical media, but it's probably safe to say that at least 1,500 titles would have to be added to my shelves to realize my collection in just physical media. The digital library has been a huge space savings for me. Also financially, there are a lot of movies that I did a disc to digital upgrade and was able to upgrade my DVD to HD for $2.50, which is way cheaper than buying the Blu-ray. Plus, I could then turn around and sell the DVD back when you could get $1 or so per disc. So,
yeah,
library.
Just as an insider baseball between two collectors, Rob, I didn't sell any of my DVDs back. I bought extra multi-disc cases and just tucked them away and made every Blu-ray that I bought a multi-disc set that included a DVD, basically. Because I didn't have the heart to just sell them for nothing, or give them away to people who didn't really want them. So I just got rid of the big cases and, put in these new ones. Plus, they started making those eco cases with holes in them. I hated those. So I wanted to replace the cases anyway. So it worked out pretty good for me. And I'm not totally there yet, but I've almost flipped the whole collection. Anytime a disc version of it is available, something I really want, I do buy it for the reasons you're saying, the security of having it. Space does become an issue. But again, I don't want to poo-poo the whole idea of owning digital copies. That utilizing the digital copies that you get with discs that you have is a good idea. Use them while they're hot. Build up that digital collection. That's smart. But you, as somebody who has done that to a much, much bigger degree than I have, I would warn you, and I would use your 3D experience as a kind of a peg for this idea that I don't believe in my heart, and it's why I hardly buy anything digitally. And people out there aren't. We talked about streaming because that's what people are doing. People are not buying these digital copies. Very few people are, but very few. Enough that when the studios decide not to support them anymore because they have to support them with bandwidth and, all kinds of stuff. When they've moved on from them, the crowd of people with large digital copy libraries, solely digital copy libraries now, the people who used the ones that came with their discs will still have their discs. If they ever get moved on from, and maybe that'll never happen, but I don't trust the studios not to, which is why I don't do it. As a collector, I would never, ever, 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 ever want to own more than 1,000 licensed to watch something that somebody has to provide someplace else for me indefinitely. I don't believe they'll do it. And I don't believe the tech really necessarily allow for it. Maybe it will, but things just, things change and you just don't know.
Yeah.
You already saw how quick we moved on from discs that at one point, not long ago, everybody had in their homes. Now you see, little memes on the internet saying people don't own this anymore. People don't own that anymore. And I'm like,
Sure.
People turn on whatever channel they want on Spotify that plays the music they want. It's like listening to the radio. There's nothing wrong with that except two things. One, you're not really choosing what you're listening to for real.
Mm-hmm.
And two, the artist that you're listening to gets nothing.
Yeah.
Gets virtually nothing for that.
Yeah.
The Spotify CEO gets jillions of dollars. But the artists involved, and for Elton John, it doesn't really matter. He made his money.
Yep.
So him being on Spotify is not a big deal. But as music moves to streaming, musicians get screwed.
Yep.
Artists get just really majorly screwed. And yet, at the same time, it's something they feel compelled to take part in because they feel like they can't reach an audience without
they
it.
got to get their music out there somehow. Yeah.
We're not a music show, so we won't get into that. But I'll tell you right now, streaming music is terrible for music.
Yes.
Period. And
let's
buying used vinyl isn't much better for music.
Sure. So let's transition this back over to movies. We have independent filmmakers that will release their movies on they'll release their movies on a streaming platform, or they'll release them on iTunes, so they won't get some of them will release it for purchase on iTunes on the same day that it goes into theaters. And then you have Netflix as a studio where these movies are being created that are only available to be streamed, and you cannot purchase them. That model does not seem to be. It seems similar in that to what we're talking about with Spotify, where it'll be difficult if more and more things become available to just stream because filmmakers just want to get their stuff out there. It's the same sort of thing. It's going to be difficult. There's going to be no money going back to the artist.
Right, there can't be. Just think about the simple math of it. If your Netflix subscription costs $12 a month and you get all that content, that does not in any way make up for a little watched thing that's on that platform that you would have spent $7 to see at a theater, any theater. Period. Now, buying their digital download of it or whatever, your digital access of it specifically actually helps the artist. So I don't want to be down on it for that reason.
Sure.
That is an investment in the movie at the time. I'm only looking out when I poo-poo that. I'm looking out for the consumer because I just don't believe that you really own anything. If you don't own something, you don't really own anything. I believe that strongly, and it comes to pass with that. I don't think a lot of people, will mind that much because, again, a lot of people don't buy these individual films and with these individual codes and build up these giant libraries. They just don't do it. That's an unusual thing.
Yeah.
They just do Amazon Prime. They do Hulu. They do Netflix. They do all the above, whatever.
Yeah.
To get the things they want. And most people we've talked about, most people aren't like us, who listen and do the movie show with Joel and Ryan. They don't relive these movies over and over and over again. They don't look at them in that same sort of way. Some of them don't even look at them really as an art form, even if they can see artistic merit in it. The point of it for them is to escape into a story and for the story to take place. And when the story's over, that's it. They don't read a book twice because why would you when you know the ending?
Right.
That's how most people experience this stuff, and I don't think those people in the long run are going to be screwed. The people who take the time to listen to us talk about these same films, these older films and things, people like me who like to watch things over and over again or, experience them in a new way or just find revisiting them comforting in some sort of way.
Yeah.
Which I know Rob is one of those people. Although he doesn't watch things over and over again like I do, but he collects them because he treasures them.
Yeah.
So in that way, we're the same. But I worry. I worry. There's nothing to stop the studios from just disappearing. And then you bought them, and then you don't have them anymore.
And you have a receipt for something, and you're waving it around, going, "But I bought this.
Well,
I bought this." And then they're going to go, "What did you buy?"
Read the fine print. Read the fine print. I promise you, none of it is in your favor. Yeah. So sometimes it's the only way you can get stuff. That's true. I won't watch something in standard definition that I can watch in HD, and I'll find a way to watch it in HD. Primary Colors is a film without a Blu-ray. That's a great example. A film I watched recently. I went and found, I guess the FBI can come get me, but I didn't want to buy a digital copy of that. Why would I do that? There was a free torrent out there of it taped off of some cable network. It looked great. Didn't look perfect.
Right.
But I decided, well, I can spend the time and effort to do this, but not the money. Because in the case of a film like that, I would not watch it before I would buy a digital copy of it.
Right.
That's not to say my digital copies wouldn't be useful for me for the discs I have, if you're on the go or you travel or just whatever. There's lots of convenient reasons. Shelf space is a big one. Not looking like a loser who's just in love with your movies and your music like I do when you first walk in here. Like I said, I don't have the gack, right? I don't have the knickknacks and the special packaging and all that. I'm not into that at all. But my whole living room is a library. It really is.
If you look, if any
and it's
of
not a library of classic literature; it's a library of pop culture and media.
Yeah, the
I
old,
just made my
the
peace
old
with
picture.
that.
Yeah, the old picture of when we first started this podcast of you and me sitting here on the couch. That photo's still available, I think, in a few places, probably on the Facebook page and stuff.
Definitely on Podbean, where we're hosted.
And but yeah, you can see we're sitting in front of the
CDs,
the wall of CDs. And if you were to just look to our left, you can't see it, but just know that to our left, as we sit on the couch, is a giant wall of Blu-rays. It's a testament to Ryan's
well, I don't
love.
know. It's just a life spent doing that instead of like having children or going to the park or
or travel.
I don't want to make it sound too solitary and depressing, but this is what I'm into.
This is what you're into. No, you're
Rob, our buddy Rob, to his credit, he's managed to have it all. He's got a family. He's got lots going on, and he still keeps that the love of cinema alive in his life. It's very cool.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't believe you own something if you don't own it. I believe that with my heart and soul. I don't trust the studios to honor those things forever. And that doesn't mean that one day they'll just say, "Oh, we're not doing this anymore," and the wall will come down. It's more likely that the rare ones will kind of start disappearing, and you know what I mean. I'm not a fan of collecting that way, and that's why it's my absolute distrust of those corporations and the idea that pact between you and them when you drop that money on those digital copies. At least Netflix is what it is. It has what it has when it has it, and it's available to you under the circumstances in which you signed up for the service.
Yeah.
Amazon is much worse because Amazon has no interest in selling another disc ever. And they're the biggest disc seller worldwide.
Yeah.
And they don't care at all. They want you coming to them and being beholden to them for everything you want to see and experience. They don't want you to have the power to watch it on your own. It's in the business model. You can see them funneling people away from that stuff. They don't even want you to download MP3s anymore. Just stream it. Stream it on our service. We've got it for you. And it doesn't even cost very much. But, it's going to cost more and more. You're going to be able to get less and less of what you want. That artist that's out there making the music that's going to connect with you, you're never, ever going to hear their songs unless you hunt for them like it's your full-time job.
Right.
That idea of that bums me out, and I don't know, it's not that streaming is evil, it's that some of these consequences of it are tragic.
Yeah.
And I like to point them out, not because I just like to be Debbie Downer about everything, but just because, I don't know, I just want people to be aware of it.
Yeah.
You know.
And that's a trade-off that clearly the vast majority of people either haven't thought of or are okay with.
Yeah. Well, and I think the vast majority of people don't partake in it, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So maybe this really
Sure.
is
Okay.
for a small group of people.
Yeah.
It's, you know, maybe the show is for those people who cling on to their discs or people who, you know, still have a library of some kind, whether it's virtual or real. Vast majority of people just don't do that. They purge that stuff from their life.
Yeah.
They just stream stuff and watch new stuff, and that's cool. I mean, there's nothing really wrong with that. But I'll just reiterate what I said at the end of the show last week, which if you really, truly do treasure something, you know, it's still okay to find a way to own it.
Yeah.
Where you really do own it. I would recommend that. I still buy CDs, and I buy them less and less, but I still buy them because those songs that I love, you know, remastered and sounding good, like that's something that streaming isn't really providing for me.
Sure.
My music tastes are very populist, but they also branch out way out sometimes out into like out to the ends of different branches of different things, and I live in fear that I'll lose that'll be lost to me somehow. My access will be gone. So I'm still a collector. I love my movies and I love my music, and I still collect. And I don't mind streaming services, which I find very convenient because I don't have to own everything anymore. I just watch stuff.
Yeah,
it saves me money, saves me space, all those things Rob's talking about. But and those digital copies are absolutely value added when you buy a disc. You should, you know, one at a time, sign up for them. It's worth doing. Then you got it there. I just don't know how secure those are in your life. And I've said that 4 times now, so I can stop saying it.
So again, this, I mean, obviously, Rob, this was a great and detailed, and we thank you so much for this letter.
Sparks lots of interesting discussion.
Yeah.
That last week when we tried to hit the whole history of the thing, we weren't really able to get this detailed and talk this much about specific bits.
So I hope that for the rest of you, outside of the 3 of us, Ryan, myself, and Rob, we hope that you have enjoyed this. And again, please, we welcome you if you have detailed questions, if you have just a regular, just a little superficial question. All good. We welcome all of it. We'd love to hear more from you. And of course, you can reach out to us at on Twitter and Instagram at Ask Joel and Ryan, and on the YouTube page, on Facebook, The Movie Show with Joel and Ryan, and Ask Joel and Ryan at gmail.com. And of course, please subscribe to our podcast. Use your thumbs for good. Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. Leave us a review. Tell us that we're pretty.
Yeah.
So that being said, we do have, we have time for at least one question here.
I have a question. Who gave you the right to play God?
What the hell's going on out here?
Why do I bother?
What is the point in doing anything?
How dare you!
What more do you want from me?
I have a question.
So this week's question, I really like this question. Actually, I have 2 questions that I really like.
We can do them both. We're all right.
All right. Well, one of them is from Rob. But
I need to get a picture of Rob from his Facebook page so that I can use it for the icon for the show this week. I don't know what I'm going to use.
But this one, it comes from us on Twitter at SugarCubeGirl. Who writes, any advice for enjoying films starring actors on your irrational hate list? Or does having such a list make you a shallow person? Conversely, does a bad film with an actor you love get more leeway from you? So three questions there.
That's a great question.
I love, So when you have an actor that first of all, do you have any actors that you just hate?
No.
No good reason, you just hate them.
No.
Oh, good for you. That's great.
Well, I can't think of any.
Yeah, I mean, I have actors that I hate hate's strong. There are actors that I watch that a lot of the time I just don't believe what they're doing. I don't buy their character and stuff.
Well, and I have preferences. I have people that I worship, so that I have people that I worship less than I worship everybody else. But having acted and just knowing what goes into filming, you know, I just don't hate any of them. Not for their work anyway. You know, I think we line up against celebrities who's
sure. So if we hate somebody as a celebrity,
I really try not to do that too. You know, with storytellers,
right?
There's filmmakers I don't like, you know, but I don't know. I let that go when I watch the thing. That's not to say I wouldn't rather see something with somebody I like in it. But you know, time gives you a little perspective. You know, my college friends still still tease me because I guess in college I only vaguely remember this. I didn't drink a lot in college, but I was so filled with hate that sometimes it's still a bit of a blur. And apparently, I really, really hated Alanis Morissette.
I don't remember this at all.
And I hated that Little Pill album.
Jagged Little Pill.
I hated that ironic song so much. And I do remember. I don't remember how it feels anymore. That hatred is gone. But I remember acting upon it, and I remember ranting about it. Blah blah blah. I don't know if this really relates directly to the question, but I had this idea that I didn't like her, or I didn't whatever. I got all wound up about something because at that point in my life, I just hadn't seen the cycle come. You know what I mean? I'd only seen one group of boy bands. I hadn't seen four. So I didn't realize that the time spent loathing something because you don't like it is so pointless when there's tons of stuff around that you like.
Yeah.
And I feel the same way with that about actors. I don't think it makes you shallow to not like an actor or to keep a list of people who've kind of let you down when you've watched movies, but I don't know. We had that question about Shia LaBeouf and you know, how his movies would be better if they were replaced by Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Oh, God, yeah.
Remember that?
Yes.
As a fun question, because first of all, I don't know how big a fan I am of Shia LaBeouf, but at the time I felt the need to defend him. And I think if you throw out your list at me and say, oh, this person sucks, oh, that person sucks, I feel like I spend more of my life defending Tom Cruise. This is an actor I don't even really love.
Yeah.
But I feel like just because people seem to not like him so much for reasons that have nothing to do with his work in movies. He's a bit of an over actor in movies, but if that's the worst thing you can say about an actor, you're really not saying much. It only goes to show that he bats for the fences every time he's up, and that is a way to do it and to have a career. And it's certainly better than waltzing through it lazily. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm prone to defend people when other people hate people, even if I don't even really like them. LaBeouf's been good in stuff. You know, he's been in crappy stuff that I wouldn't want to see a better actor in.
Right.
Everybody kind of has their place, and every actor and every director and every costume designer, you know, everybody is a part of that project that they did. They're all in a kind of an integral part of it. So, you know, that may make it better or worse in your opinion, but my only advice, I guess, because I don't know if this really answers the question, I don't feel the same way, so I don't have a list, so I can't say, you know. I definitely have actors I love enough that I watch everything they do, even though it's garbage.
Yeah.
But that'll disillusion you as well.
Yeah.
Going down that path, because when you see something a great actor does, everything they do, whoever they are, you're still going to see a bunch of junk and at least one or two performances that aren't up to snuff. You know, so a lot of it's circumstances.
My example, I easily fell into that the thing back in the 90s of hating Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
And I particularly didn't like him because I just felt everything was one note, everything was delivered the same, everything was that whoa.
Yeah.
And whether it was Bill and Ted, you know, whether it was Ted Theodore Logan or was he Bill S. Preston Esquire? Shit, which one is?
I really can't tell you.
But
he got a lot of slack for not being able to do an English accent in Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Sure, and so so it was just easy.
Which he's not good in, by the way, but which is a sort of classic example of an actor who showed up and did their very best in not the best situation.
Sure. So
it's hard for me to criticize him too much.
So watching, and whether in Parenthood, a movie I adore.
He's cast perfectly.
Yeah, he's cast perfectly in it, and I look back on it now and I see a little bit more of the nuance what he was doing, but it's still he was that whoa dude, oh right, and that led directly to Bill and Ted's, and I just it was easy to hate him. Mm-hmm. Then Kenneth Branagh casts him in Much Ado About Nothing. Yeah. And I remember, and Branagh is a actor and director that I adore.
And takes a more theatrical approach to casting than most movie filmmakers.
So do. I go to see that movie, and did we see that movie together?
We did at the Mall of America.
At Uptown.
No, at the Mall of America.
Okay, well, I'll take
Michael
your word for
was
it.
there too. He'll back me up on this.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. So we went and see it, and I remember the audience, like, as soon as he comes on the screen, everybody is like, boo, yelling at the screen that they just that they're
really.
Like, yeah, well, that's what I'm saying.
Bad?
Maybe I saw it at because I know I saw it at the Uptown with my now wife. So I'm wondering if I may have seen it twice,
possibly.
But so anyway, I remember seeing it and people booing and hissing just at his being offended that he was even in this movie, and I remember going, I don't particularly like him, but if Kenneth Branagh is seeing something and going, that's the guy I want in this villain role, well, then what am I not seeing? And so then it made me actually go, okay, well, and I was like, well, one thing is he could be playing on that idea that people love to easily hate. Maybe he wanted people yelling at the screen, boo and hiss. But, I also think I just had to go, okay, well, whatever Keanu is doing, and clearly one of the greatest actors and directors of our generation is going, okay, yeah, no, that's what I want. So maybe I should think a little bit, or be a little bit more open to how he's playing and what his performance is like. And so, yeah, so in a sense, even though I think going back to you have to think about why you hate this person. Do you hate them because of the choices they make as actors, and the characters that they, the quality of character that they're bringing to the screen, or do you hate them because of things that are? Well, I also know people who hate actors because, well, he's just so mean in this movie. Like, I hate Jason Alexander because he's mean to Julia Roberts, and well, then he did his job,
right? I don't hear a lot of that, but
I don't remember that. I don't remember where that argument came from. That might have been from an ex-girlfriend of mine back in junior high
I had a
school.
friend who hated what's his face from Sopranos for the same reason.
Yeah. So, but so if you look at that, then they did their job, and you should actually go.
He was also
that
mean
actor,
to Julia Roberts.
He was also mean to Julia Roberts,
and super mean to Patricia Arquette.
So you'd have to, or do you hate the actor because of what you know of them from tabloids and etc. Like, speaking irrationally, you have to discover what is the source of that irrational hate. Is it something that the actor actually can control, or is it your perception of what that actor is, that kind of...
Try not to miss out on too much stuff because you irrationally hate somebody, but you know what? At the same time, it's Hollywood, it's the media, it's the whole machine, and you are entitled to your irrational hate. You don't have to have a reason. It's cool. It's part of the fun sometimes, but it's not sports. And I guess the big warning would be don't miss something great because I don't like Christian Slater, but
It's not going to stop you from watching Cuffs.
I make a real effort not to hate him and not to hold his work against future work because Christian's been good in things.
Yeah.
even though very few things.
Cuffs.
Christian. Cuffs is not included. I'm sorry. I should be able to play along with the joke, but I can't bring myself to. Although, I don't know, he's as good in cuffs as probably anyone would be. I'll say that for him.
Sure.
He's in really celebrated things that, in my opinion, he's not good in.
I mean, yeah, and again, you have there are particular actors, Christian Slater, Keanu Reeves. I remember having discussions for years about Kevin Costner.
Yeah,
Kevin Costner, another one who's easy. It's easy to say you hate that guy, and to pick on some performances again, like in Robin Hood, Prince of Tides.
Sure,
he's not good in that. But I like what you said about Tom Cruise. About swinging for the fences every time he comes up.
Well, I mean, all actors have a different approach. Mm-hmm. Tom Cruise, like in the first couple chapters of Last Samurai, is ridiculous. I mean, it's a terrible performance because he's just he's so huge, and Edward Zwick is letting him be huge, and he's keeping all the hugest bits. Mm-hmm. He's not but Tom finds his way. He's not a bad actor.
Yeah.
He's more of a movie star than an actor, but he still has to do the work of the acting.
Sure.
And he does do it, and he goes too far for my taste. He just moves away from being any semblance of a person at times. But that I believe, and I don't know him personally or what his method is, but I believe that's a result of him going for it emotionally all the time. And I think, then silly stuff gets let through, basically.
Yeah. And again,
I'm prone to defend him because I think he's been good and stuff.
And again, I will say, and this is I think a time to say it, no actor is solely in charge of their own performance because an actor is at the behest of the director and the editor. It is a collaborative art form.
Right.
And so
and there's stuff, I said earlier in the show, there's stuff in Lost in Space that no good actor can say and not look sort of silly.
Yeah.
That's the writer's fault. Mm-hmm. Or anybody else who let the writing get that far.
Sure.
It's, so it's kind of on everybody.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, it's one of these things. It's like in football when we say, well, we give the quarterback way too much credit when things are going good and way too much blame when things are not going good.
Acting something that even the layperson thinks they can easily understand. A lot of people don't understand it, and they really, truly don't understand what goes into it. And it's the thing that's right there. They're the famous people element on the red carpet. They're the easy thing to judge. That question was really, really fun. We didn't say, "Oh, my favorite is this," and I at least got a few of my least favorites in.
Sure.
But even then, I always try and empathize with their situation. Yep. Give them another chance. They will surprise you. The material, the person, it'll all match up sometimes. And when it does, no matter who they are, if they're doing the work of an actor, it'll be magic. So.
Yeah, I mean, I will say in my 25 years of performing, mostly on stage, but still in performing as an actor, very rarely does a person get to that level of being in these big
sure.
major motion pictures. But very rarely is someone a very bad actor.
Right. I would agree with that.
You got to be doing something right.
It might exist, but it's just it's really, really tough.
Yeah, but
and some people who are thrust into acting, because they're picked off the street or whatever.
Sure.
Some of them you get to watch, learn how to act.
Sure.
On screen, it's fun.
So So I tend to defend. I tend to be empathetic and defend someone from when they say that, well, that person was horrible in that.
Yeah, but you're not horrible for having a list of people you don't like.
No.
But as again, just a fun thing, explore the reasons why. Just explore the reasons why for yourself and see if your list doesn't change or if you don't, as a result, bump into something that you really like that you maybe wouldn't have given a try because of your actor list that you don't like.
Yep.
That'd be my advice. That was a fun question. Thank you.
Yes, that was a great question. Thank you so much.
All right. And that's about it for us.
I was going to say, I don't think...
We got another cool question, but...
I would rather save that question because that's going to spark another long answer.
Awesome.
It's a good question. It's really fun. Rob gave us a good one.
Well, and Rob's had his big moment in the sun.
We have mentioned Rob once or twice on this program today.
But thanks to Sugar Cube.
Sugar Cube girl.
Yeah, that was an awesome question.
So, again, thank you so much for reaching out to us. We really appreciate you joining us. We hope we have illuminated your movie watching for another week. And please feel free to let us know what you think. Subscribe to us on iTunes. We will see you next week.
See you then.
Thank you for listening to The Movie Show with Joel and Ryan. Remember, all views and opinions represented in this podcast are personal and belong solely to the speaker and do not represent those people, institutions, or organizations that the speaker may or may not be associated with, unless explicitly stated. None of these views and opinions were intended to malign or deceive. And now, here's the producers, circa 1982, to play us out.
Truly wonderful the mind of a child is.